Welcome back to the official podcast for the Tale of Edgar Trunk.
What's up?
We are reading the book a couple chapters at a time and talking about it. And you have tuned into episode 2, chapters 3 and 4.
Welcome, guys.
So, how have you been since I saw you 2 minutes ago?
I've been just dandy.
Great. Good to hear it. So, we started the book. Things were really dark. And now I feel like the theme of these 2 chapters is like the adventure begins, but also the mystery really begins.
And maybe with all this darkness, we will welcome a little bit of light.
Yeah, I like that. I hope we do. So, did you have any like general thoughts to these 2 chapters before we jump into the specific ones?
I mean, I have a feeling about chapter 3, which we're going to jump into now, which is like, have you ever been to one of those like 4D movie theater experiences where like the chair moves and water splashes on your face and you smell something and then like
Something pokes you in the back.
A spider falls on you and something pokes you in the back? That is chapter 3 to me, like this experience of all of these things happening to Edgar. Like it was the same thing for me.
Wow. Yeah, I went, I think the last 4D experience I went to was a Harry Potter film. And in the previews, when the chair started to activate and things were poking me in the back and air was like blowing my hair back, I was starting to worry I was going to get motion sick.
Oh,
I was like,
yeah.
oh no. I'm like trying to drink my Coke and my straw keeps poking my cheek.
You're like, oh my God, I'm feeling anxious. Let me just drink more Coca-Cola and load on the caffeine.
Need more caffeine. Not anxious enough. Well, that's really funny. Well, let's jump in then. So, refresher on chapter 3. Here's the lowdown. Edgar ventures through that small wooden door we talked about in last episode. He's in a tunnel. It leads him to a large dark room with some surprising warm ventilated air. It's sort of boomy and echoey in there, and he hears Warnock. Like, you know, when you ever put your ear up to the air conditioning vent, you can hear people talking in the other room. It's that sort of effect.
You vermin carrying creature!
So he hears Warnock commanding the mysterious mechanical workers that we've learned about to move the sludge, mind the bilge pumps, and other strange directions. While there, Edgar trips some sort of alarm, and Warnock unleashes the mechanical workers to investigate. And so we have this terrifying scene where we hear thousands of these tinny footsteps, suggesting claws more than feet, as these mysterious mechanical workers make their way through, presumably the ventilation, to get to Edgar's current location. They are, and then we finally meet them. They are robotic in nature with metal carapaces and red beady eyes that glow in the dark. They're terrifying, and then when they're close enough that their light from their eyes is lighting up themselves, we see that they are shaped like praying mantises, the insect that freak me out. I don't know about you.
I know. We saw one recently at the park, and I thought it was the coolest thing, and you wanted nothing to do with it, and you were so scared of him. But he's a praying mantis. Like, praying is a sacred, beautiful thing. Why are you so scared of them?
Oh, see, is it that preying, or is it like preying on predator, on prey?
Well, how do you spell praying mantis? With an E or an A?
I don't know. I don't have time to Google it.
A.
In my mind, it's Prey. But my point is, when I see a praying mantis, it's perfectly still. You don't even know if it's alive or not. And then all of a sudden, like in a horror movie, its body stays completely still. Its head will rotate right towards you and look you dead in the eye. I can't. Anyway, let's move on. Because I'm almost done with the description. It might be quicker to read the chapter than for me to summarize it. But he's confronted with these creepy things. They're either preying or they're being predatory. But a timid voice at the last moment reaches out in the dark, trying to help Edgar. He's like, "Hey, over here, like you're in danger. Come on, like come this way." Edgar responds. He's led into a narrow escape. This metal grate closes off the passage right before the mechanical workers, these like robotic praying mantises, can get their claws on Edgar, even though one of them manages to actually poke through the grate and scratch Edgar on the leg. It's merely a flesh wound, so it's fine. But then we get this lengthy escape, again, very maze-like, through the dark, through these little squat tunnels. They're grimy. They basically give like a sewer vibe. And the kind stranger is guiding Edgar by voice and by feel. There's like pretty much no light in here, except occasionally. And then eventually they reach an exit into the hallway where Edgar should be able to take it from there. But just before that escape happens, Edgar, who is trying to just get a glimpse at this stranger, he finally sees something. It's a tiny bit. It's quick. It's fleeting. He glimpses a small bird beak. That's it. But then the stranger's like, "Stop it! I know you're trying to look at me, so stop it. I don't like that." So the creature shies away, asks Edgar not to do that, and finally we get a couple really juicy tidbits. The stranger warns Edgar about it in all caps and him in all caps. These two like supervillain, evil figures we're learning about for the first time. And then this creature hands Edgar this velvet pouch, telling him not to open it until he has to, and that Edgar will know what to do when he does. So the very last thing that he says is that Edgar should look for threes, like the number 3, hidden in the environment, and that they will lead him to safety, and they are a sign of good. With that, another grate raises up, allowing light to spill into the tunnel. Edgar finds himself alone and also back in the all too familiar tunnels that he has grown up with the last 9 years.
4D movie experience right there.
Right, so
Activates all the senses.
back to your 4D movie experience. Yeah, like walk us through that.
You're smelling sewer. You're feeling gusts of air. You're hearing a tinny little robotic beat. You're seeing their big red eyes. It's like just such a sensory experience.
This is definitely the first action. This is like an action chapter. This isn't necessarily a plot chapter. There's mystery, but it's not a mystery chapter. The tension is there, but this is like, it's action. You're on the go. It moves.
Yeah, yeah. And then you meet this character who's like, "Come with me, follow me, not too far, not further."
I imagine if this were a movie, this would be like quick cuts and glimpses and, a percussion score, just like making your heart beat.
Yeah. Oh, totally. It is.
It's sort of like action horror movie chapter, this one.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that praying mantises are scary, but the way that you've described them in this chapter, they're freaking scary. And there's like hundreds of them, and they're all coming after him, which is terrifying.
There are bits of mystery or sort of little clues that could maybe make you dig deeper into the general mystery of the factory. I don't know if it adds more mystery or if it's something that you can grasp onto, but I started to see some of these throughout this chapter that were quick. One of the first being what he hears from Uncle Warnock. So Warnock is commanding these workers. We know little about Warnock. We know little about the factory. We know less about Warnock's job, other than we're told it's to command the fleet of mechanical workers to move the sludge. So this little bit, though, we hear him at work, basically. It's bring your kid to work day. But Edgar is hiding, and that is the only way that he's been able to experience this for the first time. This is Warnock. The hose, you unfit cretin, he bellowed. The sludge has to flow free. Have you forgotten the sludge, you sack of donkey dung? Eh, have you? So he's mean even to robots. He was very particular, the passage goes on to say. The sludge must flow. It's why we're here. All right. Uncle Warnock just just in true Uncle Warnock fashion, the following sentences. Uncle Warnock maintained his rigorous berating like an Olympian. It was vermin this or unfit that. So clearly, Edgar is not the sole recipient of this guy's wrath.
Oh, yeah. No, he's just a mean man to everyone, including Edgar and Stu Pot.
And even scary robots, apparently, that are praying mantises.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But yet he's a scary cat with it and him. He's like petrified of
Oh,
them.
yeah. Forget about creatures. Like, he has something to do with that. What do you make of this bit about, so, obviously we're in a factory. Factories make things. We're not really sure what this factory makes. It probably, I get the feeling that what the factory makes today is vastly different from what it used to make and what it was intended to make. We're sort of in a dark future now where this factory, what's left of its capabilities, this is like the last leg of this factory is how I feel. And sludge, which, sludge is kind of a byproduct, it's like a waste material of other industrial processes. And so this is the whole purpose of the factory is to make a terrible byproduct versus make something else that might be useful and that just happens to have this byproduct of sludge. So it's kind of interesting. It's like, I don't know. It just, it feels like this is the last dying stage of a factory that somehow, even though it's now moving sludge, the sludge must flow. It's sort of like squeezing out the last drop of usefulness. I wonder how long this can continue like this.
Yeah, I mean, as I was reading it, I was hypothesizing what this factory's sludge was for. And the only thing I could think of is like, is this some sort of futuristic sludge that is used in the same way that like a coal is used? And so it serves a purpose, and that is why they're working on it. Like, I don't think they're just pushing waste around
Yeah.
for no reason.
I kind of look at it as like, this is pretty graphic, but if you were stranded like, let's say you're stranded at sea, you can't drink the water because it's salt water. The rain hasn't come. You are dying of thirst. You can, this is the warning.
Drink your own pee-pee?
Drink your own pee.
Yes.
But obviously it's not ideal. But it's like, what is pee-pee? Well, your body has consumed liquids and has now eliminated, theoretically, the waste portion of those liquids, although some good stuff is also eliminated. So it's not like your body is pure efficiency, only waste comes out. So you basically end up with a liquid that still has some, I don't want to call it nutritional value, but some like life sustenance value left in it. That's kind of how I see this sludge.
Yeah. It's like a waste that still has nutrition.
Yeah. But like, we're talking, you can't keep drinking your pee.
No,
I think it's like, I can't remember the statistics, but it's like you can do it twice, I think. The third time it's just purely toxic.
Yeah, fool me once, shame on me.
Yeah.
Fool me twice, shame on you.
Fool me twice, drink my pee. All right, anyway, let's move on from the potty humor, but yeah, it's also like, maybe you don't have to understand the science behind a sludge factory. It's more just the impression of like, this is a dark place. It's toxic. It's so toxic that its main output is sludge. The input and the output, it's sludge. Like, that's not a place we want to go. We already know this place is polluted as heck. You can't breathe outside. You can't see the sun. I think this is just like more layer on top of layer of just how terrible this place is.
And Edgar has to get out.
Oh, he has to. Yeah, he wants to. He has to. And I mean, what do you think about, You've lived this life Edgar has. You're 10. It's pretty much the only life you've known. This place you live clearly is massive and maze-like, but still, after all this time, you really don't even know what's behind the door. All the doors. Like what's behind the door times 1,000. And to now discover this little wooden door with ice on it, go down a passageway you've never been, into this dark, big room that's gusty, that's basically like the ventilation system, to hear Warnock at his job, which you've never been able to experience, to then meet a creature you've never met. 9 years you've met everyone you're ever going to meet. You think it's Stupat, it's this mean uncle. But now there's this creature. He learns, he sees a beak. Like, what is that? Is this a Krillo? I mean, that's the only bird-like thing we've been introduced to so far.
Yeah. And like, why did this person decide to come at this time and help Edgar find his way back? Who
Right.
is this person? What is their motivation? Why are they helping him?
Well, I do want to get into the motivation because we get a little bit, the stranger does impart some information by the end, but there's a moment I just wanted to draw our attention to. It happens kind of in the middle of the escape, and let's see, it's this back and forth between this creature, and there's actually two moments I'm going to talk about. The first is Edgar says so he's talking to the creature as they're escaping. He says, Edgar caught a whiff of something foul. That smell, he hissed in disgust. What is it? And after he said it, here I'm just reading at this point, Edgar felt a pinch on the rump. Don't, the stranger warned. His voice conveyed total fear. What is it? Edgar asks. Just don't ever do that. Don't. Hesitation. Don't hiss like that. Only true evil hisses. Please move along. Almost there. Edgar goes on to say, but wait, I didn't hiss. He's like, you did. You said that smell. I'm sorry, Edgar said. I didn't mean it. Only the smell is awful. And then the creature replies matter-of-factly, oh, the smell's quite awful. I agree. What do you make of that, the hiss?
It's so similar to Harry Potter being able to speak the snake language. And now here's Edgar and he's hissing his words. I don't know. I'm like, is he hissing his words or is this creature hearing the hiss? And like, it's a phantom hiss. It's not really there and it's triggering for the creature.
Well, we end the previous chapter with a hiss that Edgar doesn't hear.
Yeah.
And we know that this is from, it sounds like an evil character. We probably haven't met them yet. They're in pursuit. And here we have this new stranger who's kind, who has a beak, saying like, hey, those who hiss, they're evil, and don't do that. So at least we're starting to see in this world of creatures, there is a good and an evil. And clearly there is a motivation on the side of the creatures or the people that identify as good to help Edgar in some way. He seems to be important. We don't know why, and he certainly doesn't know why. The second piece, which is nearby this, is just this moment. Edgar says, I'm very sorry. I shouldn't have done that. This is in response to the whole hissing thing. And the stranger says, it's quite all right, young sir. You just have to be careful in this place. And Edgar says, what? What did you call me? Because he's used to unfit vermin, he's used to the insults, or like Stupat calls him Edgar.
Yeah.
So, young sir, he's never been called that before. And it catches this stranger off guard. He's like, young sir, what did I say? And without warning, Edgar tears up.
That's so sweet.
Like, what is that? And then the creature is like, oh my gosh, did I offend you? I'm so sorry. And Edgar's like, no, I don't. I don't know what that was about. It just overcomes him.
He's actually being treated with respect, and it's so foreign to him. And I'm sure because Edgar reads a lot of books, he knows that young sir is a respectful thing to say. But
Yeah.
the fact that he's being called young sir is like such an honor. He's overwhelmed with emotion. He starts to cry.
And two, it's like he's being saved. Somebody is saving him. He's not used to it. Sure, Stewpot has stepped in to like soften the blow, so to speak, from time to time. But here is someone he's never met, doesn't know who they are, and they're helping him.
Yeah, it's so sweet. I like this character.
Yeah, I really like this character as well. Later, we get some of the. Let's see. There's this whole like, look, time is running short. Here's what I know. This is quoting. So the stranger tells Edgar, "There is so little that you know, and so much that you cannot fathom." And of course, he says, "I am not the one to explain this to you or tell you the things you do not know. I'm just a friend. If I've done my job, we'll never meet again. Know this: I cannot save you if you decide to venture through the wooden door again. It's far too dangerous. What I will say is this: there's a whole world of power in your name. The meaning of this will come to you in time." Kind of frustrating. Can you just tell us?
I know. I'm like, why can't you tell me? Who else is going to tell me? It's not Uncle Warnock, and Stewpot's too dumb.
Right. So he goes on to say, all right, it's time for instructions. Do exactly as I say for your own good and for the good of many others. So there is something larger at work here. Ahead is a grate. I will open it for you so you can exit into the corridor. When you get out, go directly to your right. In the floor, you will notice the number 3. It's very small. Time has caused its bright blue face to fade. If you look closely, though, you will see it. It's kind of like those like weird paintings back in the day where like if you start to cross your eyes and you stare at it, like a shape will come out.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what I imagine with this. Follow the 3s until you reach the main corridor. Go straight to your room. Wait there. Do not venture out. Do not argue. When the big fella, Warnock, comes for you, nod your head. I promise he will not strike you. He values his life far too much. He goes on to say, I'm not saying you needn't worry, though. Take aim and always beware the hiss. There are things in this place that want you dead. I wish it weren't so, but this is a warning you need to take to heart. There's it, capital It, and there's him. I pray you never meet either, especially him. It is horrible and wicked, but him is the devil himself.
Ooh.
And then he finishes up with, you likely have 1,000 questions. That's okay. Questions make the universe go.
That's such a fun little philosophy in its own.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's like the last thing that Edgar's ever been able to ask is questions. Because Stewpot doesn't have answers, and Uncle Warnock wouldn't even allow it.
He lives in a world and in a mental space of questions. We grow up naturally curious. Edgar is 10. He's like peak curiosity age.
Oh, yeah.
We, being human, we don't only ask questions. We formulate answers. We hypothesize. And so even though the questions are abundant, and I feel like Edgar is being handed heap upon heap of new questions, new contexts, new worlds, new things he's never conceived before. But he's a curious kid, clearly. I mean, he's tread these hallways. He's explored the knocking sound, investigated. He went through the wooden door, even though it said, don't enter. And that, even though it's subtle, I think that is like a defining characteristic for Edgar. He is endlessly curious. And when it comes to getting answers, he doesn't let his fear get in the way.
Nope, he doesn't. He's a fearless little kid.
So I think there's like a lot more to Edgar than meets the eye.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me this. Why the number 3?
I have to go back to, like, I'm in my early 20s. I've just graduated college. I've just come out of like several years of reading classic literature, of like English workshops, creative writing workshops, and lots of like English major reading and writing discussion. And one of the things that becomes quite apparent, even if you don't go to school for this, is that 3 is a magic number. 3 is repeated throughout history, throughout religions, and it's just sort of seen as a very symmetrical, magical number. And I'm sort of playing with that idea in a way where I don't expect anyone to understand the actual connection. But since I can tell you the origin of 3, there is a deeper, bigger idea behind this number 3 that is yet to be explored. Probably will emerge in book 4. But yeah, I think it was like I need a symbol of some kind. It could be a number, it could be like a star, it could be a polygon. When you come up with like visuals like that, if it was a symbol, how do you describe it where people can actually visualize it if they've never seen this particular symbol before? And so I think, I just went with 3. But yeah, the 3s do recur. We'll talk about them as we move through the books, and I'm sure you recall them as well.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's interesting that you yourself have pulled from different influences in literature to put into this book. Like the last episode, you referenced Dante's Inferno and how that experience you wanted to kind of imitate in this book.
Well, and the other thing, and we haven't talked much about the chapter titles, but chapter 3, this chapter that we're discussing now, is titled The Wind and the Billows. So obviously a play on A Wind in the Willows, The Wind and the Willows book. And a lot of chapters, I'm trying to remember if book 2 is the same. Definitely this book. They are like references to other works of literature, and not in a way where you have to dig really deep and you'll unlock like new levels of meaning. But I think just little like inspirations that it was fun to throw in.
Yeah, they're like little Easter eggs.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
If you know where to look for them, you'll find them and pluck them out.
That's right. Totally. So, and it was fun, like the little books that he reads where they're mentioned by name, like Cold Hard Things About Ice, like Marge McGinty Crosses Over.
Yes. Oh my God.
So yeah, there's one that was really good. It might be called The Iceman Cometh by Eugene O'Neill, but Eugene O'Neill is spelled completely different. It's like the letter U, Gene O'Neill.
Yeah,
Gino. Yeah. We'll get to it and we'll talk about it. But yeah, it's just kind of fun. I love literature. I love writing, and anywhere in a way that isn't obtrusive. I've had fun laying in these Easter eggs, like you said.
Yes, they are very fun.
Well, you want to take us into chapter 4?
I would love to. So chapter 4 is titled The Creation Stones. So at the end of 3, this mystery creature has helped Edgar get out of the tunnels and tells him to follow the 3s. And so that's exactly what Edgar does. He follows these 3s that he sees in the floor all the way back to his corridor, to his tunnel, to his room. When he gets to his room, there's Uncle Warnock.
Oh.
Arms crossed, leaning against the wall, so angry. Where have you been? I told you not to leave the tunnels. What are you doing? I'm so mad at you. And Edgar is like, I don't know. He's covered in grime. He's like, what's happening? And Uncle Warnock's so pissed, he leaves him. And Edgar's so exhausted from this whole adventure that he passes out. And when he wakes up the next morning, he remembers that he was given this pouch. So he looks into the pouch and he opens it up, and inside are these little stones, and they're ruby and sapphire and beautiful. And so he picks them up, and they say creation stones, and he starts drawing on the wall, red, blue, green, orange, and he makes this beautiful mural. And then Uncle Warnock comes in, and he's like, oh crap. And Uncle Warnock's like, what are you doing? Oh my God. And he says, you know what? You don't want to follow my rules. You don't want to listen to me. I don't care anymore. Just go. I'm not going to follow. I'm not going to protect you anymore. You're on your own. And he leaves. And Edgar's like, oh, okay. I guess I'm going to go then. And so he takes his pouch of creation stones and he walks out the door and he starts going down the corridor and he's on his adventure now. And Uncle Warnock's not going to stop him anymore. But as he walks away, a hooded figure stands outside his door. We see this person again, this hooded figure. And then they get spooked and fly away because the shadow appears again. And now this shadow is looming over Edgar's bedroom door. And that's where we end 4.
And I believe the door shuts.
Of course.
And
as the factory doors do, they just whoop, slam shut on their own.
And if I'm not mistaken, it says never to be opened again. What I love, I feel like in a lot of books and certainly a lot of TV and film, there's a pretty clear bad guy. The bad guy might have goons or, might have an army, but there's a pretty clear villain. In this, there are so many dark forces at work, and they even have a dynamic with each other. And it's really interesting. You have Warnock, who is evil. He's a bad guy. He's clearly an enemy of Edgar, but Warnock has enemies and fears. He fears creatures. He is afraid of these voices. This cloaked figure has terrified him before. He is so terrified, it feels like this is a momentous time because normally he would have punished Edgar, but now he's letting Edgar go. And I feel like it's not really, I don't feel like Warnock is letting Edgar go. Like, fine, you win. I think he's freeing himself of the responsibility of Edgar. I think he's like, hey, this kid has a death wish, and I'm not going to have creatures feast upon me because I didn't take care of him. That's on him.
Yeah.
It's like his fear, he's finally letting his fear take hold, and him letting Edgar go is definitely him saying, not my problem.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to be curious? Yeah, go ahead. And I think it's indicative of like a culmination, like a swelling of evil forces and happenings, that this is a moment in time where things are really, really intense, more than they've been this last 9 years. There's a chatter, there's a buzz, an evil buzz.
And also there's like a pecking order for evil. It's like Uncle Warnock might be the closest proximity of evil to Edgar, but then you've got it. And then you've got him.
And then you've got this cloaked stranger.
Yeah. And they're all kind of like so one of them is in charge. One of them is the scary person at a time directing whatever is happening.
Well, since this is quasi reread podcast, where presumably if you're listening to this, you've probably read the book. We'll go ahead and say, so, because I think it's interesting rereading this with information from later chapters of this book, that I won't spoil the cloaked figure yet, but I will say the cloaked figure is sort of like factory level big threat. The shadow is it's looking for Edgar. In chapter 2, we hear like, that's a good boy, the hiss. There's like a dark cloud descends in the tunnel behind Edgar as he makes his way down. That's it, taking its time. We get the cloaked figure goes for Edgar at the end of this chapter 4, and Edgar's not there. And it approaches, scaring off the cloaked figure. So Warnock and Edgar both are terrified of this cloaked figure the cloaked figure has haunted Edgar's dreams and clearly has come for Edgar. What happens will be revealed, but right now that's all we know. And even if we don't know that the dark cloud is it, we know that the cloaked figure is afraid of it, of the shadow. The shadow supersedes the power of the cloaked figure. And I'm fascinated to see how that will play out as Edgar is now sort of released, exposed to the threats, no longer protected, and he doesn't even know what's going on or how to solve a problem he doesn't know exists.
Now, why do you think Edgar agrees to leave when this mystery creature who saved him the night before told him, "Don't go. Like, don't go exploring. It's scary. It's not safe. People in here want you dead."
It's a great question. I think that it's easy to look at Edgar as you could think it's misleading. You could feel he's not very defined. You could feel he doesn't have strong characteristics. You could feel he doesn't have agency and that he's not making choices. He's just a prisoner. He's got this mean uncle. Terrible things happen. But when you really look at the actions, he sneaks out to investigate the hallways. He hears this strange sound. He investigates it. He finds this little wooden door. It says, "Don't come in." He goes in. He, someone helps him escape because he's put himself in this great danger. And the one who helps him escape clearly knows more than he does. And he gets all these warnings in chapter 3. Go back, keep your head down, just nod, don't engage in the conflict. And what does Edgar do? Don't open the pouch. What does he do? He opens the pouch. I mean, he didn't make it a day. And it's like he's coloring on the walls. Like, what?
He sounds like an orphan boy that can't take direction and doesn't listen. He's not going to have a good luck in the future.
And I think these are the qualities that make Edgar special that might not be apparent. He's not like a Harry Potter where he's gifted at magic and magical things have happened because he's got a raw ability. He's not like these people, these kids in other books that have discovered a superpower and it now can save them and they had the power all along. That's not Edgar's situation. But what Edgar has is he's so strong-minded. I mean, to have lasted this long, of course, without breaking, he'd have to be.
Yeah.
This overpowering curiosity. And he says later, actually, I think he said earlier, gosh, now I'm trying to remember. He has a conversation with Stupat where he says, there has to be more than all these halls and all these doors.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if we read that already or if that's coming up in the next few chapters. But that's a conversation that happens, and certainly that's insight into what drives him. He is not... It's almost like if you were to ask Edgar if he was a prisoner, he would say imprisonment is a state of mind, and I don't see myself as imprisoned or allow myself to be imprisoned, therefore I am not a prisoner.
And that is probably one of the most philosophical 10-year-olds I've ever met. He responds like that.
Well, he's well-read, so he's probably more like a 12-year-old.
Yeah, true. But it's so true. It's what the creature said, like, questions make the world go. And you say that Edgar doesn't have a superpower, but I think he does. It's his curiosity. That is his superpower. Look at how much it's propelled him forward.
How amazing.
It's beautiful.
I think that, as the series progresses, Edgar is special in more ways than just being curious. But in this earlier phase of his journey, that is his superpower. And what I love about that for anyone, I love it for Sage as he grows. I love it for anyone who's young or old, who reads this book or who just has this idea. Curiosity is something that any of us can have. It doesn't rely on muscular strength or athleticism. It doesn't rely on any special powers in, above just being curious. Anyone can be curious. And I totally believe that that can be a superpower when embraced and wielded.
Yes, I feel like I am a very curious person. I ask a lot of questions and I genuinely care to hear the answers. In that way, I relate to Edgar a lot.
That's very Edgar Trunk like. There, just because we like to laugh at how terrible and how dumb Uncle Warnock is, there's a little passage I thought was just so ridiculous. This is about, so Edgar is a growing boy and he's going through shoes pretty quickly, and Warnock doesn't want to change out the shoes, but he has to acknowledge that Edgar needs shoes. I mean, he needs shoes. He's in a factory. Like, what are you gonna walk around barefoot? No. Um, but listen to how Warnock's psyche flips it all around. Um, let's see. Uh, let's see. It starts on this first page. From time to time, okay. It starts with, one of Warnock's biggest annoyances was Edgar's shoes. From time to time, Warnock was forced to find new shoes for Edgar whenever his feet outgrew the ones he had. Reasonably enough. The first few times this happened, he simply cut the tips of them right off so Edgar's toes poked out.
Pobrecito.
He didn't care about the floppy soles, which had worn away to nothing, or the heel without padding, which caused painful blisters. Edgar could run around without shoes for all Warnock cared, but if he expected the brat to do any work, he figured he had to have something on his feet. The problem was, Edgar's feet seemed to grow much quicker these days. Well, yeah, he's 10. Warnock found himself replacing the shoes every few months. He was starting to think Edgar purposely did something to make his feet bigger. Something spiteful to anger and annoy him.
Yeah, what is he taking? Foot steroids?
He's making his feet grow so that he can make Uncle Warnock angry.
Oh my gosh.
His misguided rage is just hilarious. It's off the charts.
Oh, he'll find anything to be annoyed with. And let me tell you, he probably has great work boots. No holes, no.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing.
Unfrayed laces.
Yes.
Laces?
Yeah, laces, not rope.
Yeah, exactly. So we end this the second chapter of what we're discussing today, chapter 4, the creation stones. So two things I do want to talk about the creation stones themselves, but first, so we end this chapter. Edgar has just suddenly become Michelangelo, Donatello. He's like painted onto the wall with these like magic chalk, basically. It's kind of like the visual I get. And we are told that what he has painted is a scene, a landscape of the factory at sunset.
Yeah, which there's no sun
Right.
in the real world.
I mean, we have to assume there was at some point there was, but that from what we've been told, at least, assuming everyone tells the truth in this book, Edgar could not have ever seen this factory, could not have seen a sunset. There is reference to him being outside, like with a gas mask and everything, but again, we're told it's so polluted, it's a dense canopy of smog, the air is toxic, it's lifeless, it's gray. So he might have seen the factory from somewhat of a distance, but he's never seen a sunset. Maybe he's read about sunsets. So I read this and I want to know what you think. Is this magic or is this just imagination? In terms of like being able to render a visual of what he does.
I think it's magic. I mean, he's wielding these creation stones, painting this beautiful mural. It's unreal, and it's out of his hands.
Literally. By being in his hands, it's out of his hands.
Yeah. But my question was, is he drawing, or is the magic drawing a memory or a fantasy?
Right. Or is it just and if it's a fantasy, is it because there's different grades of fantasy? Like, is it just a dream? We can all dream anything. I mean, whatever a mind can conceive, we can dream. And certainly, as someone who's well read, sure, some of the books probably had some pictures in them. It feels like the books he gets are more like adult reading. Like they're hundreds of pages. They're not picture books or anything like that. But yeah, and I think, okay, whether they are fantasy or magic, what is the symbolism of this?
Well, when I read it and I visualize it in my imagination, I'm filled with hope. Like, okay, we're going to get somewhere by the end of this book. Either we're going to see the sunset or we're going to have answers to why there's no sunset. There's hope for the future for Edgar. Like, look at this beautiful mural. There's something coming. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and just as an image, as a final image for a chapter, it certainly is hopeful. Um, all we've seen this whole book, this whole first 4 chapters. I mean, what are we at now? Like over 60 pages of a 200-page book, and everything is so dark and gloomy and gray and sludge and black and dark and very little light. And yet now we get this big, beautiful, colorful sunset. There's 2 levels. One is this hope of a world where sunsets happened still exists, at least in memory somehow. And now it exists in a piece of visual art that Edgar has made. And if it exists in memory or in fantasy or in magic, whatever this moment is, then it exists. And if it exists in this form, that's, I think, where the hope comes from. We feel it can exist again, or that we're being shown this image because we are being told indirectly that the world can be what the world was.
Yeah.
And I think if you're a hopeful person, you think that. If you're a cynical person, you might think this is just showing you what you'll never have again. You could certainly look at it that way. You wouldn't be wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the both of us we like to think, okay, this is like a new goal. We want to head toward this. And it's not just a sunset. It's like a sunset over the factory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Oh, we should try and draw this.
Oh my gosh, I wouldn't be very good at it, but
okay, I'll draw it.
you should draw it. But so I just want to end on a short discussion on the creation stones themselves. They seem pretty, I'll use your word from last podcast, innocuous right now. I mean, they are glorified sidewalk chalks. I mean, how they seem right now, even though like the painting or whatever you want to call it, the mural does seem very vibrant and alive.
How dare you call me glorified sidewalk chalk?
Yeah, exactly. That's a new band we just started. So this is something that is extremely important in this series.
The creation stones.
The creation stones. And I feel like Edgar unknowingly has just depleted some incredibly valuable and rare resource to make a painting.
Yeah.
That like doesn't seem to help him.
Like a shelf life. They're not like an endless supply.
Right. And we will get into that more as we get deeper into the book, that yeah, these stones, and certainly into book 2, he takes these stones with him for a while, but yeah, they're not forever. Like, they're not a renewable, rechargeable resource. Like, you use them and they're done.
But he doesn't know that.
He doesn't. That's what I love about it. Because how's he going to just know intuitively? He's just been handed this bag. He's never seen these before. I think a lot of stories, it would be very convenient and easy for this valuable object to be treasured. And, you'll know, I mean, what the creature says, like, you'll know what to do. It's like, yeah, it's sidewalk chalk. I'll draw on the sidewalk. That's what I would think.
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna make a painting.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I think that like this moment achieves a lot and is a little unexpected, more so to me looking back on it now. But yeah, I mean, the door shuts, never to be seen again. What did he really achieve with this mural? What did he achieve? I mean, I know what it helps us and has an effect on us as the reader, and maybe gives us a little more insight into the world. But just for Edgar, what does this do?
I think it pushes him out the door. I think it's just as hopeful for him. And seeing something so beautiful and lit and colorful, he's like, I need to find this.
And where did clearly this came from him, whether it was channeled through him or not, it was by his hands, even though he passes out and wakes up to see this. Like, it's a feverish, crazy, out of body experience, theoretically. Yeah, I think it's just, it's like his parents came home and he had doodled on all the walls in Sharpie. And now they're like, you got to go. There's a door. You're not our responsibility anymore.
Yeah, totally. I can relate to that.
I think it's more dangerous, though. I don't think it's that, although it's funny to imagine. I think it is more so he is capable, he is unleashing some part of himself that is a threat or is part of a prophecy or is demonstrating that, okay, Edgar cannot be contained 100% anymore. And if you go around putting big, bright murals on the walls in a dark, mysterious factory, you are basically waving a big, colorful flag saying, look at me.
Oh, yeah. I'm a target.
I'm a target. And we've already learned that he's a target. And so maybe what's happening is he's been a target for a long time, and now he's making himself known. And now whoever has targeted him, whether it's one entity or multiple, they're all going to be coming now.
So you think it's like a come at me, bro movement?
I don't think he intends for it to be. I think he unwittingly has brought this on.
Yeah.
But then I think there is always going to be the question, did he bring this on or was this inevitable? And we'll have to see.
Yeah. I mean, the cloaked figure and the shadow already know where Edgar is. So it's not like they're trying to find him physically. But maybe now that he has these creation stones, they're like salivating over him now. Like he's even more valuable than he was before.
I feel like the cloaked figure certainly has known where he is, but maybe the shadow is new or more recent. It has come for him. We're going to learn more about that in the next few chapters.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Oh gosh, here we go. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you're enjoying these discussions on the book. And I got to tell you, they're just going to get deeper and better and more interesting as we go in the series. And I cannot wait to get to these later chapters, and especially the more recent book that I just finished this year. But lots to talk about in between now and then. If you like what you're hearing and you want to support us, you could like or follow. You could comment. It really will help. We would love to hear from you. And we are going to do this anyway because we love it. And we hope to see you there when we do.
Give us the 5 stars, won't ya? 5 stars.
Would it kill ya?
Would it kill ya for a little bit of a 5 stars?
I don't think it would.
Thanks, babe, for running this and for allowing me to walk through the Tale of Edgar Trunk with you. I love you.
We're holding hands, and it is wonderful.